How are you? Welcome on into another podcast by George. Folks, today it's Ron Placone. He just got in the green room. It's early out on the left coast, out in California where he lives, but he's joining us. He's standing by. We're going to get to him here very shortly. He's one of my all-time favorite guests, of course. He's been on many times, but we've got a topic to talk about today that a lot of people are largely unaware of, myself included. I got to admit, I was not on top of this. And Ron said, "Are you following this, George?" And I said, "Well, not really." He said, "Okay, bring me on and we'll talk about it because this deserves some bandwidth, folks." And, let me bring it up on screen here to show you there's the graphic, the promo that I used, a Bad Moon Rising on the internet with Ron Placone today. And then, of course, here is his. There he is with the comedic look on his face, folks. That's Ron Placone. This is his live line introduction. Ron Placone is a comedian. He's been seen on the Discovery Channel, Crosstalk, Free Speech TV, Redacted Tonight, TMZ, The Jimmy Dore Show, and more. He can be seen every Thursday on Status Quo, and I love Status Quo. You've heard me talk about that a lot. They were the first ones to report historically, really, on that January 6th riot, insurrection, whatever the hell you want to call it. Status Quo was on the ground out there, and it was like, where the hell is everybody else? Well, they were inside. The mainstream media was reporting on the pomp and circumstance, the delivery of the box or the bag with the tally in it or whatever that was. And in the meantime, you got thousands of people on the outside getting ready to crawl through the windows and try to tear the place down. And it was Status Quo that told me about that. Also, Ron's debut album, Agnostic Holiday, is in rotation on Sirius XM. He writes the comic Lucy and Ron. I'd love to talk about Lucy. We might get to that a little bit here before we're done. And he hosts the podcast Get Your News On with Ron that I try to catch every single time that I can. His short film pilot, Loner, was released in 2023, and he currently is in production on his first feature film, which is Left at Wall. Okay, let me take this off of the screen here. I think I can do that. Let me find the right button there. Click over here, click there, and welcome him on in and say good morning to our old buddy, our old pal, Ron Placone. Hiya, Ron.
What's up, buddy? How are you?
I'm doing great. I'm glad to have you on, particularly so early out there in California. There's a dude on the beach that does an excellent job of kind of synopsizing these issues of the day. I want to play this, and we'll come right back afterwards. Check this out, folks. You got to subscribe to Ron Placone stuff. Watch this.
Hey, guys. Ron Placone here. Some of the hottest days that have ever been recorded have happened recently. And when you look around, you think, technology, the internet, this could all be a huge asset in helping us build a better society. Sadly, Congress is fixated on passing these horrific dystopian tech bills. Bills like the Restrict Act, COSA, the Earn It Act. Fortunately, a large coalition of human rights and civil liberties groups have come together to launch a week of action. Starting July 20th and going to July 28th, right before the congressional recess, you can let your elected officials know that these bills can't pass. Go to badinternetbills.com to learn more and make your voice heard. That's badinternetbills.com.
Yeah, like I said at the top, Ron, I was kind of asleep at the switch on this, and a lot of people are, but this is a big deal, and I'm glad that you're talking about it.
Well, that's the thing. They want people to be asleep at the switch because this is how they pass terrible bills. What they do is and by they, I mean Congress, they wait until people are not paying much attention and they have must-pass legislation, and they tack on bills that they want on must-pass legislation, and then they just kind of ram it through in the dead of night. And, this effort is with Fight for the Future, who I work with, along with the EFF, and also the ACLU is involved. And various members of the EFF are in D.C. now, being an ear to the ground on what they're trying to, push through. So that's changing and evolving, but we know that they're going to try for CSAM in particular. We know they're likely going to try for COSA, which is that act has been dropped and reintroduced, and they changed the name because it's such a terrible bill that nobody likes it. And then also Cooper Davis, they're likely going to try to push through. So we're basically having this action to really just get a big swarm of people just telling their elected officials, we will not tolerate these bills. We're paying attention. Like, we are paying
Yeah.
attention. We know, you know, that we, the public, don't like these bills, but we know that all the big tech lobbyists you have to deal with, they want you to pass bills. But we're telling you, you do it, we're going to remember. So that's basically what this action's all about. So people can go to badinternetbills.com. And first of all, you can read more into all of these bills. I know I've talked about a lot of them on your show, George, but, you know, folks don't need to just take my word for it. They can read about them on their own, and they can say, yeah, we're gonna let our elected officials know that these bills can't come to pass. So
Yeah, these bills could change everything in the world that we live in now. Like it or not, I mean, we're digital folks. This is what we're all about, and it's akin to something like Julian Assange. This is all about free speech and our ability to be able to have free speech. The little people, the poor's, people
yeah,
like us, so that we can get platforms, so that we can be heard. And as Bill, now here's, it's like they're trying to bury us in these bills. I want to bring this up on screen, and Ron will talk about these briefly.
yeah, there's
This
a
action
lot
is
of them.
underway now. This is the website, badinternetbills.com. Tell Congress, say no to bad internet bills. I'll read this, and then we'll try to get through these. There's a bunch of these things, folks. Congress is trying to push through a swarm of harmful internet bills that would severely impact human rights, expand surveillance. Oh, God, we need some of that, don't we? And enable censorship on the internet, as if there isn't enough. On July 20th, they launched a week of action to get loud about our opposition to legislation like COSA and Earn It. These things people never even heard of, and demanding that Congress focus on passing badly needed comprehensive privacy legislation to actually protect us from the harms of big tech companies and data brokers, instead of pushing through misguided legislation before the August congressional recess. So they're trying to ram this through, ram these down our throat. And here's the first one that's up, Ron. Earn It. The Earn It
Yeah.
Act of 2023. Talk about this one.
So Earn It is, you know, under the guise that is going to crack down on nefarious behavior online, but really what it does is it cracks down on encryption, which encryption is the extra layer of security that we all have on our messages, and it's very important to our privacy. Earn It really guts that. A lot of acts gut that. This bill is a kind of version of Sesta Fosta that was designed to kind of curtail sex work online. In reality, all it
Mm.
did was it made sex workers way less safe online. It did not have, any positive results at all. It's been a disaster. Earn It is just another extension of that, and it goes even further. So, this bill is just straight up no good. A lot of these bills go after encryption, particularly, especially because these days in a post Roe v. Wade society, law enforcement is counting on social media platforms, i.e., Facebook. Facebook was the big one first to share DMs and information to crack down on people that are trying to get abortion care or whatever else.
And that's the point that needs to be made. These things aren't just ineffective, they're actually counterproductive.
Mhm.
And it's kind of like, well, they don't know what they're doing. But it goes back to what I talk about on the show all the time. People get sick of this. Ron's heard me talk about that scene in the movie Casino. Are they too dumb, or are they in on it? I mean, are they
Yeah.
are they trying to do something? Are they trying to pull a fast one on us here by representing these things as something that they're not, when they actually have an extremely negative effect? We talked about Earn It. That's just the first one here. Let me kind of cycle through these things here. COSA, it claims to
Yeah.
make kids safer, but it's really a dangerous censorship bill that would give the government unprecedented control over the internet. Talk about this one, Ron.
Yeah, so this bill, it's all about keeping kids safe online, which when you just take the title, it's like, well, of course,
Yeah.
who wouldn't be for that? We want kids to be safe online, and we do, of course. But in reality, what this bill does is it gives bureaucrats at the state level and elsewhere the ability to pretty much dictate what kids can and can't see online. This bill in particular, most famously, the Heritage Foundation, which is the Koch brothers and their institution, They said the quiet part out loud that, yeah, the whole point of this bill is to just make sure that LGBTQ youth does not have access to resources that could be helpful to them. That's all they want. That's their agenda. So it's a pretty deceptive bill. It's a pretty Orwellian style bill. It's like it's definitely a surveillance bill. And again, this is another bill that, even though they've really sugarcoated it and they've tried to convince people it's something it isn't, and they've had some success in doing that. They've convinced some well-intentioned people that this bill would be a good thing. But every single digital rights and human rights organization strongly opposes this bill because of what's really in there.
Hmm. All right, that's COSA. Let me bring this next one up. This is the Restrict Act. We mentioned that one off.
Yeah.
Again, privacy and security concerns. And this one focuses particularly on TikTok, Ron.
Yeah, this was commonly referred to as the "Don't Ban TikTok" bill, and they had that hearing, which was comically absurd and absolutely xenophobic and embarrassing. But that hearing brought about the security concerns around TikTok, and there are security concerns around TikTok, yes, but they're the same security concerns that you have on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. In fact, that hearing revealed that Instagram and Facebook in particular are worse when it comes to your data privacy than TikTok is. They're freaking worse. So if you're worried about TikTok, but you're on Facebook, you should be more worried. The solution to all this would be passing an actual extensive data privacy bill, but they don't want to do that. You know why? Because that would hurt the pocketbook of the Mark Zuckerbergs of the world. So
Yeah.
instead, they have these scapegoats. They try to make it out, and this bill in particular was so shady. Mark Warner was one of the main sponsors of this bill. What this bill really does is it cracks down on any type of software or app or development coming from a country that isn't the United States. Guess who has a huge investment in domestic software? Mark Warner.
Yeah.
Oh, the pieces are starting to come together.
The
Another thing this
wealthiest people. Yeah.
bill does is it messes with something called the Berman Amendments, which means when you mess with those, that means any given president, be it Joe Biden, Donald Trump, Ron DeSantis, whoever's coming next, they can dictate what news you can and can't see that comes from a different country other than the United States, so that they could just ban the CBC one day if they wanted to, whatever. So yeah, this bill is one of, in my opinion, the most xenophobic of the bunch, where it just, anything that isn't the United States is a disturbing, nationalistic, psychotic piece of legislation. And even this bill in particular was not super well received. You had everyone from Rand Paul to the Squad opposing it. So you had, different sides of the aisle politically, at least in electoralism, who were strongly opposed to this bill. And hopefully, hopefully those heads prevail, because it's a terrible piece of legislation.
Yeah, and you talk about earlier in this bill also keeping kids safe. Who wouldn't be for that? Well, China. I mean, my God, who wouldn't like to harm China a little bit with this drum roll, this warmongering that's going on with China? This is gonna get some legs amongst some of those members of Congress. China,
It
as
will. I
Trump
mean,
says. Yeah.
it's just so ridiculous because
Yes.
it's Americans' data isn't even in China when it comes to TikTok. I mean, TikTok's domestic thing, like, it's run domestically. It's run in the USA, and so yeah, it's an absolutely ridiculous thing. And that hearing, I streamed the hearing live, and it was just one of the most ridiculous things I had ever seen.
Yeah. Are they too dumb or are they not? There's more, folks. The age gating bills.
Yeah, these
Age
things.
gating. You've heard of Russia gating. This is age gating. Yeah, go ahead, Ron.
Yeah, well, what they do is they want you, and Utah was a big case study here. The website Pornhub left Utah over
Mhm.
this. So what bills like this intend to do is they want you to have to show an ID every time you want to go to a certain adult website. So every single time, like, let's say you want to go to pornhub.com, you have to show an ID to do that. And they basically take a picture of your ID. They keep a database of your ID. Now, look, I think we can all agree. Only people of the appropriate age should be going to pornographic websites. I think we all agree on that. And it's great to have some mechanisms in place to try to make sure that's the case. But this is not the way to go about it. What this does is it creates a very vulnerable database of everybody's IDs.
Yes.
It's not like this is just a general one-time thing. This is an every single time thing for everybody. Every time stuff like this has been tried, it has not been effective. People have found ways around it. So it's like it's not like this is actually keeping minors off of pornographic websites if they're choosing to go there. So it doesn't do anything it says it's going to do. Instead, what it does is it creates these very, very vulnerable databases. And if it gets into the wrong hands, well, who knows? I mean, people have a bunch of sensitive information of yours now. And the website Pornhub decided that they are going to leave Utah. You cannot go to that website in Utah because when Utah passed a law like this, they were like, look, we're all about, only people who should be on our websites being there. But this bill does not do that. And this bill puts a huge burden on us where we're expected to keep track of this data now. This is setting us up for a bunch of lawsuits. So we're just going to leave your state.
Yeah, and that's the other thing about this. These lawsuits that will undoubtedly follow, if any or all of these bills get passed, will cost us time and big money, folks. It's
Yeah.
best to do what Ron wants you to do right now, which is step up. Go to this badinternetbills.com and participate in this to stop what's to follow. And, you talk about this age gating and Pornhub and places like that, Ron. Well, you can say, well, people that are concerned about their data, they shouldn't go there. Well, I think I read one time that Pornhub is the most heavily trafficked site in the world, maybe.
It wouldn't
Certainly in this
surprise
country,
me.
we're talking millions, tens of millions of visits. I mean, it is overwhelming. So we got to get real here. We got to be realistic. Okay, I think you talked about this off the top a little bit. What's this one?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, so Stop CSAM. This basically reduces private protections. It's similar to Earn It. CSAM undermines end-to-end encryption, which is like the
Oh,
big thing at play here. Like it undermines end-to-end encryption, and it actually doesn't stop anything nefarious, like it's claiming it will. Instead, they're going to go after people seeking abortion. They're going to go after LGBTQ plus youth. That's really what they're trying to do. And it just gives the government carte blanche to just survey whatever it is you're doing.
all right, one more here. I got one more slide. Cooper Davis Act is a misguided attempt to address the public health crisis caused by fentanyl in many communities in the U.S. Again, ain't going to work, going to cause more harm than it will good, Ron.
Yeah, and it blows open your encryption protection on messages. I mean, a lot of these bills, I mean, Earn It is sort of like the main bill that led the way with that, with trying to blow up end-to-end encryption. And so they have like a couple
Well,
subsets of that, basically leaning on a different cause, saying, "Oh, it's because it's a public health issue." And it's like, "No, you're just blowing up end-to-end encryption." "Oh, it's we're trying to stop this, we're trying to stop that." "No, you're just blowing up end-to-end encryption." So you saw a lot of similar, kind of copycat bills, like how they say it in the website there. So that's basically a summary of what's going on. They're likely not going to try to push through every single one of those bills right before the August recess because that'd be an awful lot of them. But they're definitely trying to push through a couple. We're already getting speculation about that, so we're kind of getting ahead of the eight ball and letting them know, hey, we're paying attention. We know what you're trying to do. We're paying attention to what you're trying to do, and we're going to be really loud about this. So, badinternetbills.com, please. It just takes a moment. You can call your officials, you can write your officials, and you can let them know you do not want these horrific bills to come to fruition.
I wanted to bring this up on screen because Ron's not being chicken little here. I mean, we're not yelling about the sky falling. This is real world stuff here. I got this off of your Twitter feed. I think it was
Yeah.
your Twitter feed here just in the past week. A Nebraska teen who used pills to end pregnancy got 90 days in jail. Look at that photo, Ron.
Yeah, and it's because Facebook provided their messages to police. I mean, this was a 19-year-old who was impacted by the change in the law, and could not get the abortion care that she needed where she was. I actually don't. I can't recall. It might have been actually right before the law went into effect, but for whatever reason, she still couldn't get what she needed in the state. But either way, stuff like this is going to become way more commonplace in like a post-Roe society. So they had to try to obtain information to get what they needed elsewhere, and law enforcement used their DMs via Facebook as evidence to prosecute them. So this is basically the type of world we're living in now, and especially with what's going on. And they're using these surveillance tools to create registries. There's registries going on in Florida right now of transgender people. They're trying to build a registry in Mississippi of people who go outside of the state for either gender affirming care or abortion care. And you kind of ask yourself, like, well, what do they want these registries for? What are they doing? Why are they making this? This is incredibly disturbing and alarming. So all that is happening, and online surveillance tools help them do that. And if bills like this pass, it's going to be way easier for them to do that. And unfortunately, some people might be thinking, well, gee, I'm not I'm not a transgender person. How does that apply to me? Well, guess what? The age old saying is, first they came for the transgender community. I did not speak out. Then they came for the socialists. I did not speak out. Then they came for the communists. I did not speak out. You look at Florida. Let's use Florida as an example. First, they came for the transgender community. And guess what? Now they're coming for the communists and socialists. Rick Scott made it clear, hey, if you're a communist or socialist, don't come to Florida.
Yeah. And another real world example, Julian Assange. Everybody, who cares? Journalists, they didn't seem to care about Julian Assange. Guess what? They're coming for you. They're coming for you next. I mean, that's the next domino that's about to tumble with Julian Assange. And in fact, it already is because of self-censorship, because of the, the freezing by journalists, the fear that they have to do anything to reveal high crimes and misdemeanors, by their political leaders that Julian Assange and WikiLeaks revealed. It's already happening. It reminds me of the Twitter files and this girl with Facebook, Ron. That kind of sounds a lot like the media platforms that helped capture that, get that kid that was using those classified documents for his gaming online. I think some of the most really prestigious media outlets participated in this. They're either going to be compelled to have to turn these people over, or as is happening right now, they're doing it voluntarily.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, and then you have like ring cams and stuff like that, where it's
Yeah,
like entire neighborhoods are basically under surveillance, and they have actual contracts with law enforcement. We don't know what exactly is in them. But that's kind of the Bezos way. He has a bunch of contracts with the CIA, with law enforcement. We don't know what's all in it. So yeah, I mean, it's real policy that enables this stuff. It's not like it just sort of happens out of the blue.
Yeah.
Like it's very deliberate, and there's a lot of policy, and you hear a lot of people, like, they're really good at using the buzzwords. They're really good, like, oh, big tech, oh, like surveillance, oh, censorship. They use those buzzwords. They don't take a step to know what that actually means and to know what actually impacts that. And it's bills like this. But getting into the nitty gritty of all these bills, it's not it's not necessarily the sexiest thing in the world. But you know what else wasn't the sexiest thing in the world? The Telecommunications Act of 1996.
Yeah, no, I know what
But
that did. Yeah.
yeah, wonder what that did. If people would have taken the time to understand it,
Yeah.
maybe something could have been
Yeah.
done.
Yeah,
But
you hate
nobody
Fox
did.
News, folks. I mean, you want
Yeah.
to sit there and throw a shoe at the television at night. In 1996, they should have been doing what Ron and I are doing. And before that, the Fairness Act. We talk about that on
Yeah.
my show all the time. Now there's all these bills, and there's a lot of dust in the air. This is the old, I call it, the police used to refer to it as the gypsy strategy. They throw all this magic dust up into the air to get in your eyes and confuse you. But just go to badinternetbills.com. It's all simplified. You can take a run through these bills if you want to, and that's your one-stop shop to try to do something about this. And you're not alone. I wanted to bring this up. Ron, the Green Party is on board.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Shout out to the Green Party for the bump there. Yeah, the Green Party is behind this action as well, which we really appreciate. So yeah, go to badinternetbills.com. It just takes a moment, folks. And yeah, we're really we need everybody's support here. So please, 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 badinternetbills.com. Just take a moment of your time. Do it as soon as this show's over. Just as soon as we're done here, go to badinternetbills.com and let your elected officials know.
Yeah, that's great. And I, also wanted to mention that we had a couple of comments up earlier from Bill Astori, another great guest on Podcast by George. I'm going to get him on here in, hopefully next week or certainly the week after that to update him. His Substack is just stellar. There's a lot of great stuff on Substack, folks. I know Ron's on there. I'm trying to get a presence on Substack. Chris Hedges just posted some great stuff on Substack. Go check that out. I'm just going to click on this because I love this. Mary Ann Cummings. She says the Biden administration wanted to establish our own Ministry of Truth last year. Yeah, remember that? Oh my God, what a screwed up mess that was. Everyone in
Yeah, I do
power thinks
remember that.
they are the ones out of all humanity who won't abuse that power. And when it comes to Biden or those people that are in charge, that are running the world, those people in Congress, and it kind of takes me to the next point that I wanted to discuss with Ron, but I always go back. You don't have to be a rocket scientist. Look at the Iraq War. Anybody that would prosecute that, anybody that would do that under either a too dumb or we're in on it premise, the weapons of mass destruction, gee, we didn't know, or maybe they did know, 1 million people dead and in the ground in Iraq, innocent civilians. You don't want to turn this stuff over to them. You don't want those people to be in charge of our lives. They were in charge of those 1 million people that are in the ground in Iraq, those lives that are lost, not to mention Afghanistan, Syria, Libya, all of these places. Afghanistan for 20 years. My God, we don't need to turn anything over to those people any more than we already have. And I kind of gets me to the next point that I wanted to talk about with you, Ron, and it's the electoral politics. Now, you and I have talked on the show before. I'm with you. I mean, I've
Yeah,
gotten there. I've pretty much given up on it. I mean, I don't see any solution, to the problems, to what any cure to what ails us coming out of this electoral
Well,
process.
I'm more into it locally than anything else.
Yeah,
I mean, I tell people, I'm like, look, I used to get, well, I still do. Like I get a bunch of emails of people running for office and stuff like that, which is great. But I wish for every 10 I'm running for Congress, I'm running for Senate, I wish there was like 2 or 3 I'm running for city council, I'm running for mayor. And typically there's not. I mean, local is where you have a much better chance, where there is at least, some amount of transparency and comparison. I'm not going to sit here and say there's no corruption locally. Of course there is. There's a bunch of like real estate developers like kind of planning to make sure they get what they want and stuff like that. But you have a seat at the table because it is literally your community. Like they can't kick you out of the city meeting. I mean, unless you do something terrible, but you know what I mean? Like they can't kick you out of there. They can't like stop you from going to that. They can't stop you from, running for school board. They can't stop you from any of those things. So it's just way better in comparison. And the real estate developers and the right, they realized that years ago. And I feel like the left is kind of catching up to that. Like a testament I like to tell about that. And I was talking to somebody in my neighborhood, who is a leftist and an activist. And they told me that they were doing a food drive for I forget which country it was, but it was a different country. And I don't want to get into specifics anyway, in case the person who had this conversation with me sees this. But but they were doing a food drive for a different country, which is fantastic, by the way. Like I'm not saying that's a bad thing. Of course, that's a good thing. But I asked them, I was like, oh, and hey, because this was when I was new to San Pedro. I said, where are some of the good mutual aid efforts here in San Pedro? That I can help out when I can, either with some donated food or with, a little bit of money when I have it to spare. And that person didn't know. And I kind of thought, I'm like,
yeah,
I appreciate what you do, but this is sort of part of the problem. You are doing a food drive for somewhere not even based in this country. And when it comes to how can we help out in our backyard, you don't know. So, I mean, I found out on my own, because again, this is when I just moved to town. But I kind of feel like, and I'm not saying that person wasn't well intentioned. Of course they are, but like that's sort of like a metaphor of like, this is what I'm talking about. This is what we really need to kind of fix up our backyard, and we really need to know what's going on in our backyard because that's where you actually have power. That is
yeah.
where you have power. I'm not saying you can't do food drives for a different place. Like that's all well and good, but know what's going on in your backyard too.
And continue to try to force the government to do what they should do. But for instance, here in Iowa, Our governor, Ron, is cutting back on SNAP benefits. I mean, people aren't going to be able to get food, and it helps the farmers, helps the economy. It's all good.
Yeah.
There are 60,000 kids that go to bed hungry in this state that only has a few million people in it. And what are we going to do? We're going to pull the rug out from under them when it comes to food in the state of Iowa. And talking about this electoral process and what we can do, I pulled this because Ron's big on direct action and big on a strike, and in particular, a general strike. And this kind of shows you what we're talking about. This is huge news out where he's at. 12,000 Hollywood writers on strike,
Yeah.
160,000 actors announced their strike. 340,000 UPS Teamsters prepare to strike. And look at the graphic there. This could get very interesting very soon, Ron.
Well, it already has. I mean, here in SoCal, like the entire industry is pretty shut down. And it's absolutely horrific that it got to this point. I mean, this all has to do with the studio screed. Nothing. I mean, everything the writers are asking for is totally reasonable. Everything the actors are asking for is totally reasonable. They have been screwing us over for too long. It's gotten to the point where writers just straight up can't survive. Meanwhile, these studios and executives are making record profits. They are making record profits. Now, I mean, writers should be paid everything they want and then some, especially these days, because you can just do a writer's room over Zoom. You don't need like anything else. So it's ridiculous that they have not come to the table and they have not budged. I personally don't see this being resolved before the year is over. And it's a really big bummer. I mean, as somebody who is, in show business, it's a really big bummer because the industry is completely shut down. I mean, there's still independent stuff that happens. So I'm just going to keep myself as busy with that as I can. But it's a really big bummer. Auditions are not happening. A lot of writing work is just not even a possibility. And, it really sucks, but it's necessary. It's what we got to do.
I've tried to follow this as much as I can. My eyes kind of glaze over after a while. This AI thing that they keep talking about. You've got an
Yeah.
industry that involves the most creative and the best that human minds can come up with. And they're talking about replacing this with AI. And I'm like, well, AI to me is like a robot vacuum sweeper that moves around in your kitchen or something
Yeah.
like that. I mean, how the hell is that even a possibility? You think about the great movies and the great writing and the great comedic stuff, that can't be reproduced well ever, I
No,
think, by
AI
AI.
AI cannot develop a story. Like it can't just come up with an idea on its own. It can come up with a story if it is spoon-fed everything to like the nth degree by, guess what? A freaking human. And if you're going to put in all of that labor, you might as well just write the damn thing yourself. I mean,
Mhm.
it's a totally pointless. It's like you're just telling this robot what to do over and over and over again. Now the robot won't make the same mistakes twice. Okay, neat. But you'd be better off just doing it yourself. I mean, there are some ways where AI could be a helpful tool in all this. Like a friend of mine brought up what's it called, like AXR, or I forget the exact abbreviation for it, which is bad, I should know, but it's basically whenever you finish a movie or something like that, and there are certain lines that the powers that be, whether it's a studio or like a big time producer or whoever else, maybe they want certain lines to be different. They're like, we got to switch this up, they need to say this or they need to do this. And what they do, instead of shooting everything all over again, is they just have the actors come in and do a quick voiceover
Yeah.
of what they want to fix. Something like AI could come in handy there because they can duplicate an actor's voice. So basically, what they could do is while they're shooting, they could have the actor just do a bunch of words via voiceover, just like any words they would think they would need. They would be like, do these words. And then if they need to do it later, they can do that with the help of AI instead of having an actor come in again. Because maybe that actor is, Brad Pitt, and he's already on his private jet back to wherever,
Yeah, right.
but the actor is still getting paid for all that. They would just get compensated in a different way. So in a situation like that, it could save everybody time. AI can help in developing something like a pitch deck, but you still need a human doing all of the creative assembly. But it can come up with kind of like neutral images that you can use to just kind of show like this is what I'm envisioning in my head, basically. And that's fine. Like that's no, like there's nothing bad with using it for that. It's still a useful tool. But people are getting it in their minds that AI can like actually do creative labor, and it really can't. And what few things it can do, I mean, it can take a mathematic algorithm and come up with a story for you, but you need to spoon feed it so much that it's just
Might as well do it. Yeah,
might as
with
well
a
just do it
human.
yourself.
Yeah,
And people are, forecasting this future where basically you just go in and make your own story via AI and put yourself in as the main character. And if they ever have that available for people, cool. And I'm sure some people will like that and knock yourself out. I think that's kind of weird and boring. But if you're into that, go for it. But I still think there's going to be a future where people are going to want to be told stories. I mean, that's the oldest form of communication we
yes,
have, George, is like
yeah,
storytelling. We have
yeah,
been storytellers our entire freaking lives.
yeah.
As long as humanity's been around, going back to the freaking Platonic dialogues and before that, even. So, so I think this idea that like we're just going to reach this point where, well, we're not going to be storytellers anymore. People are not going to want to embrace stories anymore. With with as much frustration as I have towards humanity, I just don't see that happening at all.
Yeah.
So a lot of the stuff around AI, I think it just sounds like really really boring people describing a science fiction idea they got in their head that's just not real. And you see it being amplified by people like Elon Musk and stuff like that. People who don't really, I guess, don't really understand it. Although you'd think he would. It's kind of like his field. But some of the stuff that they say about AI in the creative space is just stuff that it can't do. Now, maybe they don't understand the creative space. That's a very, you know, strong possibility. But yeah, I'm not. I just don't. The big fear, not fear, but the big issue here is that residuals are not being paid out fairly. Writers are not getting paid fairly for their work.
Yes.
That's what actors are not being paid fairly for the work. That's
Yep.
what's really going on here. And it's because of
Yeah.
the greed of the companies. It's not because they can't afford it. They're making record profits. And the
Yeah.
CEOs are making how much, you know? So yeah, I mean that's what's really at stake here. They need to address AI, and the reason they need to address it is to make sure that it's not used for nefarious purposes, or to make sure they don't just like double dip, like the situation I just described where you pre-record something and you get paid for it. But what if they just like stole your words and then reproduced it or used your image forever or something like that? They need to have stuff in place to prevent that.
Yeah, Marianne
That's what
Cummings
they need.
posted that. She's it's plagiarism or even worse.
Right.
And just for me personally, AI is the thing I'm most concerned about, Ron, is AI is currently guiding and managing weapon systems. The
Sure.
next step for that would be the ability to launch. And when you get
Hmm.
to that stage with AI being done robotically, then you're in Terminator land. I mean, you're talking Skynet, folks. I mean, that's if they determine that humans are a risk to the planet, which indeed they are. I mean, I don't want to get out in science fictionville, but that's the way that
They're
I
going to
look at
turn
it.
on
And
us.
yeah, in
Yeah.
real time now, I'm concerned about voiceover actors with their ability to replicate those voices. I'm not so
Yeah,
concerned, like
that's what
Ron
they
says.
need to that's
Yeah,
what they need to get in place. Kinda like I was saying, like
yeah.
that's what they need to get in place. So it's like, yes, AI is definitely part of the conversation to make sure like performers are protected. But, you know, on that same note, people are just projecting things that AI just straight up can't do.
Yeah. I just
And
saw
it's
the
just kind of nonsense.
I just watched rewatched a favorite old cowboy movie of mine, Tombstone, with
Oh,
Kurt
cool.
Russell. I'm sure you're familiar with that. But that thing
I've
just
not seen it.
oh my God, great line after great line after
Alright.
great line. If you ever it's just I was sitting there watching that, I thought, AI this. Come on,
Mm.
robot, write these lines because that movie is stoked full of them. I don't know how. It seems like they lost their way with westerns after that. But my God. Well, anyway, I digress. I wanted to.
Yeah, no, you look at some of this. I mean, there is some amazing writing going on in the TV space, especially right now. There's a lot of bad movies too. I mean, there's
Yeah.
always a little bit of everything. But there is probably, I mean, this is maybe the greatest era of television we have ever had, ever. Just incredible storytelling going on in this space. And yeah, you really think that the technology that ruined a soccer game for everyone because they thought the referee's bald head was the soccer ball? You really think that
Yeah.
can write Succession? You think
Yeah,
so?
yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Cool. That's a hell of an imagination you
Yeah,
got.
you
You
are.
should
You
be a
are.
writer with that imagination.
You're out there in science fictionville and put the money where it's deserved. I tell people all the time. I've been talking about it on my show a lot. I was in broadcasting, working for a multi-million-dollar farm ag radio operation. The guys upstairs selling the advertising. And can you imagine how difficult would that be selling ag chemicals on the air on an ag radio station? They're making tons of money. And the people that are responsible for the ratings and producing the content that allows them to sell that stuff to make that money, they're living on, discounted green beans. I mean, that's how bad
Mhm.
things were back in the day. I used to sit there and think, my God, if it weren't for us, you guys wouldn't be able to sell Dinky Doo. Well, let me bring this up on screen here because we're going to run out of time with Ron, and we're talking about these great movies and all that. I got this clip here I want to bring up, and I want to see if I can get our mics unmuted because I think this is this has got one of my favorite, probably my favorite actress in it. So let me bring this up on screen here and we'll watch this. Here we go. Okay, so I'm going to unmute our mics here. So there we go. So we can, where's Ron's mic? There it is. Come on, Ron. Can I unlock that? There we go. So there's Ron asleep on the couch. And here she comes. There it is, Ron.
Yeah, there she is.
Now watch this. I'm on cell phone. That's what this noise is in the background. Starts to ring. I think this is ad lib. This is Lucy looking at here in the lower left. What? See that paw there on his chest? It's perfect. Timing. It is everything. This is this is the and then she's got a line here coming up, I think, or maybe I talked over it, but so there it is. This is just the opening few seconds of the pilot loaner. Go check that out. It's everywhere. I mean, it's great stuff. It's stellar. That's the pilot. And that is, well, I'll tell people where they can watch that, Ron.
Just on my YouTube channel, youtube.com/Ron Placone. It's one of the first things that pops up. And you can please subscribe to my channel because we're going to try to make the rest a loaner. I mean, we're looking for sponsors and stuff like that to try to release it as a web series. So we released the first episode. It was a lot of fun. And we're going to try to make the rest of it. I'm going to try to do it in 3 parts. It's not going to be super long, but I'm going to try to do it in 3 parts. And yeah, Lucy, yeah, she really knocked it out of the park. She just sort of, I mean, we did a bunch of different takes of that. It's not like we caught it all in one, but she would just kind of come over and just lay there. And we were like, yeah, that's great. Like hopefully she keeps doing that. And then, yeah, like that was sort of like the perfect catch.
She puts her paw on your chest when the phone
yeah,
rings.
she puts her
It's
paw
like,
on my
hey,
chest.
dude, come on. I mean, that's just stellar. I mean, I
Yeah.
love that stuff. It's yeah, go check Loner out. It's definitely worth a watch, folks. I love that. Well, let me take a spin here through. Ron's a man of a million projects here. He's got a lot of things going on, and he is moving around. And this is a big road trip here, Ron.
Yeah, I'm gonna be at the Edinburgh Fringe Festival. So if there's any podcast by George fans abroad and you're gonna go to the Fringe Festival this year, come check out my show. I'll be there August 16th through 27th. I'm part of the free festival, so there's actually not an admission to get into my show. You can just kind of show up. So please do show up. August 16th through 27th. My Fringe show is called Balding is Punk Rock, which refers to one of my jokes. And yeah, it's going to be a good time. I've been wanting to do the Edinburgh Fringe forever, and I'm finally getting there. So I can't wait.
Yeah, that's great. That's coming up. That'd be a good way to use some frequent flyer miles if you've got them, folks.
Yeah.
And, Lucy won't be on that road trip. Man, Lucy is getting on. She's still doing well.
She's doing well. Yeah, she's doing well. And
How
yeah,
old?
she's 17.
God, Ron.
Yeah, she's 17. Yeah, she still does good. I mean, she still plays. She's still, pretty healthy. I mean, she's on one medication, but for her age, that's not bad. And yeah, she's good. She's just she enjoys the deck where we live. That's like she likes coming out. And this time of year she gets to come out whenever she wants because it's like summertime, so my wife and I will have dinner out there somewhat, and she's allowed to kind of be out there as long as we're there to supervise her.
Yeah.
And yeah, so she's living her best life.
17's outstanding, and you've been with her, well, 17 years, obviously, but she made the
Yeah.
move to California with you? Is that, I mean, does it go back that long ago, or?
Oh yeah. I mean, I've
Yeah.
only been in California since 2016.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, I mean, she lived with me in Nashville, Pittsburgh, Seattle.
Yeah.
I mean, she found me in college, so she's from, I was back in Bloomington, Indiana in June. It was part of my series of shows in the Midwest, and I kind of was like, oh man, I'm in mine and Lucy, or not mine, but I'm not from there, but I was like, I'm in Lucy's hometown.
Thought I
This
could
is
play the
great.
clip again. The other thing is great, but you're wearing a Joe Strummer T-shirt. I talk,
I am.
the stylings, the theme song that opened my show there. It's kind of a Joe Strummer type of a
I think
song.
I'm
The
wearing the
Clash,
same
yeah,
shirt too, by the way. I think
yeah,
I'm
yeah.
actually.
He doesn't get his just due. That was a man that died tragically. That is highly influential. When he was only 50 years old, I mean, people talk about Kurt Cobain and Jim Morrison and people like that, rightfully so. But man, we lost a big one when we lost Joe Strummer. That was huge.
That was huge. I mean, I think he's still very well celebrated. Probably
Oh
not
yeah,
quite at the level of those two other, that you mentioned, Jim
yeah.
Morrison or Kurt Cobain. But yeah, I mean, that was. I mean, I still remember what had happened. Like I remember, and I wasn't as big on the Clash in high school as I am now. Like I kind of migrated to them more as I got older. But the Clash was sort of like sacred ground. I mean, as like a young punk rocker or whatever, like the Clash was like that was the holy grail. And yeah, it was sort of like a loss of innocence when it was like Joe Strummer died. So yeah, I mean, I
Yeah.
remember like classmates being really depressed and stuff. So yeah, that was
Well,
big.
the one thing I want to say is I mentioned Morrison and Kurt Cobain. Now, drugs and alcohol weren't a factor in the death of Joe Strummer. That was a congenital heart defect, if I remember
Yeah, I was gonna
correctly. I
say
mean,
I don't remember how
yeah.
he died
He
actually.
just collapsed. Yeah, it was not anything like that. It was totally unexpected, but they
Oh,
found out later that it was congenital, that he'd had this problem. Talking about influence, like Ron was, my God, Bruce Springsteen. I mean, he did the tribute to Joe Strummer and the Clash at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. He'll be the first one to tell you that he was hugely influenced by that music. So that in itself means it deserves respect that we've got. Well, we're going to lose him. I'm going to go ahead and send him on his way here. The last thing I had a little note here, I'm sure you've been asked this before or given it some thought. The role of comedy in our political discourse and why. And I'm thinking about Lenny Bruce and Dick Gregory, George Carlin, Bill Hicks, how Chris Rock, people like that. Some of the greatest, most insightful, cutting edge political commentary in this nation's history, really modern history anyway, comes from comedians. What's your take on that? Why is that?
well, I mean, what's the age-old thing? The jester's allowed to tell the truth as long as they're funny about it. You
Ah,
better have a punchline or you're in trouble. And so yeah, I guess that's why, they were able to kind of do what they did, and hopefully that that tradition is continued. But that's what got me into comedy, really. I mean, I was really into politics before I was into comedy. And so I really got into stuff like Bill Hicks and George Carlin because they were talking about these things, and that really appealed to me. So, whenever I get the question like, "Oh, when did you decide to become political?" I'm like, "Oh, I started that way." I was into I was into politics before I was into comedy. So,
yeah.
it didn't go the other way around for me. But yeah, so, I mean, it's something I celebrate. It's something that I think is a good thing, and I hope to be part of it in today's era.
Well, I'm going to put your Patreon address up here. This is on the scroll down there below there. Rockfin also. You sign up on Patreon for Ron there. You throw him $5 a month, something like that. You get a theme song. You get access to that album that I talked about earlier. It's a great thing to do. And before we wind up here, Ron, give us, tell people how to follow you and all the stuff here. Do the due diligence at the end of the show.
Yeah, you can just follow me on YouTube. It's just YouTube Ron Placone, so you can watch Loner, and then I'm Ron Placone on all the socials: Twitter, Ron Placone; Instagram, Ron Placone; Facebook, I'm Ron Placone Comedy, And then I'm on like the new ones too. I'm on Blue Sky and Threads and all that. So I'm on Mastodon, but I don't really understand how to use it, so I don't do much over there. But I'm on pretty much all of them. I'll be at the Edinburgh Fringe Festival, and then October 21st. If you have any LA listeners, I'm doing a show in San Pedro, California. And you can get tickets for that at my website, ronplacone.com. And yeah, also keep an eye out. My movie is going to be released hopefully by the fall. We're on track to get done by the fall. We're still editing it now. And George, you're actually in it. So
That's
you have a
great.
cameo. And yeah, which
Yeah,
I'll have some more information for you on all that. But yeah, so I'm really excited to release that to the world.
gotcha.
And yeah, ronplacone.com is the best place to just keep track of everything. I have a Substack too. I do love Substack. I wish I was able to do more with it just as an individual comedian guy. But yeah, I do love Substack as well. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Well,
I'm out there.
love to throw these comments up on screen. It encourages people to watch and participate because this is a great opportunity to talk directly to people like Ron Placone. Jay Boggs says post production is also ground to a halt. Thousands
Mhm.
of picture and sound editors, as well as mixers and stage techs, are all out of work. No one even considers us. We're in solidarity and suffering. Well, Ron does, obviously. I mean, he's right there with you. This is his business too. This is his industry. And well, it's affected the Lucy and Ron comic. Is that correct? Did I see that correctly?
Well, we're
Is it
still allowed to do Lucy and Ron because that's like but yeah, it has affected both myself and the illustrator because he's on strike right now, and I mean, even though I'm not directly on strike because I mean, well, I'm not part of the WGA because the way it's measured is by points, and I don't
mm,
have the appropriate points to be able to be a member. So I'm technically not in the WGA. Um, but I mean, obviously, like I'm supportive of the strike, and I would
sure.
never cross a picket line or anything like that. So I guess like technically I'm on strike, but I'm not. I can't claim WGA membership because I don't have the points to be a member. The way it's measured is really weird, and like new media stuff doesn't count as much. So basically, all the stuff I've done in the YouTube space and in the podcast world, none of that counts. Even though I've written for stuff that gets more views than a lot of stuff that does count. So it's kind of weird, but I think it's one of those things. Technology doesn't always catch up to policy right away. So it's like a lot of the stuff that I've done just didn't count for WGA points over the past like 5 or 6 years. So I was never able to join. I want to. I still would. Hopefully eventually I'll be able to, but like I just haven't done the things that count, or like enough. I should say of the things that counts. Some stuff has counted, but not all of it.
Yeah,
Yeah, so basically, I'm impacted by the strike because there's nothing, there's no work unless I want to scab, which of course I'm not willing to do. So, there's no work going on for me or for, basically anyone in production or post production or whatever. And then the illustrator of Lucy and Ron is impacted by the strike as well. He's out in New York. And he's kind of in like the broadcasting space, and he's impacted by the strike. He's an illustrator, and he's impacted by the strike as well. So we're doing our little cat comic, and if people enjoy it, hopefully they'll buy us a coffee. You can buy Lucy and Ron a coffee. So hopefully, if you like it, you buy us a coffee because we're both impacted by the strike right now.
God, I love comedians. I love comics. I post them on my Facebook page regularly. That Pearls Before Swine guy, that Stephen Pastis or whatever his name is. My God, that guy is great. So if you love comics, if you love cats, Lucy, if you like Ron, follow the Lucy and Ron comic, and I would assume that's at your website
Lucy
as
and Ron,
well.
yeah, you can get that
Yeah.
from my website, or you can just go to lucyandron.com. You can go straight there. But yeah, there's also a link from ronplacone.com. There's of course a Lucy and Ron link. So yeah. Yeah, you can find everything. It's all out there.
All right, good. We'll put this up one more time here as we wrap up because it really was the genesis, the reason for this show. The Bad Internet Bills Week of Action. Go to badinternetbills.com. So give us a close, Ron. You just want to end with that or something else here? I'll give you last word.
Badinternetbills.com, folks. Please help us out. And if you're interested in any of my stuff, ronplacone.com. And look out for George in the movie. He does a fantastic job. I think I did it the wrong. Yeah, there we go. He did a fantastic job. So look
Well, it
out.
was easy. I played a real tough role, folks. I played Podcast by George. So
Yeah, he plays himself. He
Yeah.
plays himself. But yeah. No, you did a great job. I think you're gonna. I was just watching our latest cut yesterday. You know, like doing the editing notes and stuff, and I think you're gonna like it.
That'll be great. We'll let you go for now, pal. We'll circle back here very shortly because you're one of my all-time faves, and you're out there in CA, out there on the left coast, as I like to call it. Man, I love the people in California. Love Ron Placone. Ron, thanks again for coming on this Podcast by George live line.
Thanks for having me, George. Good seeing you, buddy.
Yeah, folks, and if you like seeing Ron Placone and hearing about all this stuff and learning about badinternetbills.com, which I was unaware of, badinternetbills.com, go to podcastbygeorge.com and sign up free on all of the various platforms. And particularly if you're seeing this maybe for the first time and you're thinking, God, how do I find him on YouTube? It ain't easy, because if you search me, you're going to come up with the Prince of England. I'm telling you, that's the George that you'll find. Just go to podcastbygeorge.com and click on the YouTube icon. It'll take you right to my homepage on YouTube. Subscribe there, leave a review, give us a thumbs up, ring the notification bell on YouTube. And then, of course, the same is true on Facebook. That icon is right there on the website. Click it. It'll take you right to the Facebook home, and you can do it there very easily instead of searching around and breaking your mind trying to find those things. And then, of course, if you just like to hear audio for podcasts, go to podcastbygeorge.com and click on, iTunes would be the leading one, or Spotify, the iHeartRadio app, places like that. But that is going to do it. That's going to wrap it up. That's all there is. And there ain't no more. That's another Podcast by George.